All
or
right.
anything.
Welcome to
Hello.
Sassy Saturdays, where we are discussing avoiding pregnancies through abstinence today. And oh wait, sorry, it's wrong discussion. Um, Today we'll be talking about driving value in marketing, sales, customer success,
Project
product.
management, anything.
Yeah,
And we've got a real project manager here, which is Sarah, not a fake one.
yeah. Sarah, wave for the audience.
She can't hear us.
You can. Okay, we'll wait for Sarah. So for the audience, we've got Mandy today, Nick again. We've got Ricky, who's invisible, and Sarah's joining us, and Josh, who's leaving people bad reviews on Facebook.
Well, listen, I am really offended that they would call me a Karen. That is ridiculous. So,
And I'm Jessie. Nice to meet you guys.
good job, Amir. You forgot about Jesse and you ran Sarah off. Man.
I didn't do that. It's just your, like annoyance today, Josh, at things that are happening in your life. Leave LinkedIn alone, man.
Well, that's what I told him. I was going to go tell my LinkedIn friends, and they were going to be real mad at him. We're going to take the keyboard pitchforks.
Sarah can hear now. You can ask her question.
Hi, Sarah.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to start us off with Nick. How do you drive value in sales?
Gosh, I just replaced the word sales with serve. That's it. So stop trying to sell something. Stop trying to make a transaction. Just hear what's going on in the other person's life. What are their goals? What are their plans? What are their challenges? And see what I can do to help them get closer to their target end condition. Whether that results in a transaction or not, just try and help people.
But is that genuine?
No, it's completely it's completely self-serving. I fake it the entire way.
So, as a question, how many sales that happen are actually genuine and driving value to the customer rather than just for the salesperson?
Could you repeat the question?
How many sales people, out of say 1,000, genuinely drive value towards their customer rather than for their own profit?
I don't know. That's a really good question. I have a guess of what the number is, but I don't really have data to back it up. It seems to be the perception amongst the public that most salespeople are self-serving. On the list of most respected professions, I think we're slightly above like lawyer and executioner. Salesperson, yay! Trust me, I'm a salesperson. So doesn't seem to be working out pretty well industry wide.
But it's improving is what I'll say. I've been talking to Marcus, all the dark social sales people, all the ones who are actually advocating for good sales and giving value to people, and it makes a huge difference these days. What do you think, Ricky?
I kind of always liken it to dating, right? You could if you're meeting someone at a bar, that the trust is exceptionally low. They've got self-interest in it, and it's how do you find if they're being genuine, and how do you cut through all of that? And like very much in those circumstances, trust is very low. There's a high level of skepticism, and that's exactly the same in sales. So I just find that trying to drive value in my world is about brutal honesty and like hoping that aligns. So I prefer more of our challenger method, where I will educate and I will confront and I will challenge them. And I feel like if they see that I am being genuine, upfront and authentic and honest, then they may derive some value from the engagements. And if they don't derive value from the engagements, I'll also tell them I don't want their business. And I think that's about just them knowing exactly what I'm after, because there is obviously self-service and self-interest in all of this. But if you on the same platform and you're both involved and want the same transaction, then it takes my dating analogy more to like Tinder. You know, there's not never mind, like Tinder swindlers kind of the exception to the rule, but both people are there for self-service and for self-interest. They're also engaging with me for their self-interest. They want to solve a problem.
Ricky,
And that's
go ahead.
No, Carrie, go.
So you say challenging the customer, the challenger method. At what point are you comfortable challenging?
I mean, I'll challenge them from day one. I'll challenge them from the time they step out and say, I'm potentially interested in your product. I would be saying, well, why? Like, what brought you here that you wanted to engage with me on my product? What is your problem? Let me understand that, and I can tell you what my product does and how it might help that. And very often, I'll challenge them on the premise of the problem they're trying to solve. Like, they might come to me saying, hey, I'm looking for help with outbound. I'll be like, yes, maybe you have a problem with outbound, but in general, the problem is you lack revenue, and there may be multiple sources of that problem. This is potentially a symptom.
That's a really good point.
So here's another question then. But if you're selling, you're actually approaching the person. It's not just Tinder, right? But where you're both looking for something. It's the seller who's approaching someone to make the sale rather than the buyer actively looking for something.
I disagree with that because I think there's really three buckets. Everything that happens before the conversation is really a marketing function, right? Then sales, I think, is what happens after someone has raised their hand and said, yep, I'm interested, whatever.
We're both disagreeing.
I disagree.
Okay. Well, that's just the way I see it. So go ahead.
No,
I'd love to be
that's
educated.
the traditional method, right? And I think that most people probably see it that way. But yeah, I guess I'm just referring to like kind of the conversation we were having last week about, closing the trust gap and how really good salespeople these days are actually marketers. And so when you're on LinkedIn and you're posting, people are building a relationship with you. They're going to come into your DMs. And so it's going to be to the company's advantage to have that person who has the trust with them to continue on with the sale.
But I think what the difference here is semantics, in that, Jesse, what you're saying is the salesperson is fulfilling a marketing function. Mm-hmm. And what Nick is saying is that before you have that first sales call, it is an act of marketing as opposed to an act of selling.
Yeah, if you're talking about a sales call, definitely.
Well,
and that's what I agree with Ricky. So what I'm saying is most companies hire salespeople and then tell them to go out and market,
right?
Which is crazy to me, right? So that's what I'm trying to say with that distinction is we're hiring salespeople and saying go out and market, and salespeople don't know how to market, generally speaking. And so what they end up doing is they end up doing things that actually are negative, that actually lessen the relationship versus strengthening the relationship. So we talk about the pitch slap, right? Someone connects with you and then automatically goes straight into the pitch, or they pick up the phone and, a cold call without any research at all, right? Those are marketing. It's a marketing function. It's not good marketing, right? You have salespeople who are out there doing it, but I don't consider that sales. I think it's somebody saying, like, hey, go generate demand. It's really marketing.
That's not demand though. What I'll say is anytime you're reaching out to a person to sell something, that is a part of sales, right? Whether it's outbound, whether it's a pitch slap, so to say, or whether it's emailing, 1,000 people or cold calling people, it's still a part of that function, right? The whole problem is that everything has been demarcated into a sales function or a marketing function with no alignment, right? The whole problem is alignment, and the semantics is could be anything, right? But ultimately, if you're trying to say, here's a very simple difference, right? marketing is creating awareness. I read that somewhere on LinkedIn, or it's part of marketing is still creating awareness about a product, while sales is going out and pushing the product towards someone.
Yeah. Well, and here's what, like, because we have Mandy and Sarah with us today, who have to think of providing that value in completely different ways, because Mandy's going to get on the other end of it, where she has to keep people happy, and she also has to take care of people that are unhappy. And then you have Sarah, which I believe kind of has to look at that providing value kind of as a holistic kind of point of view. So I would kind of love to hear kind of from them, kind of, because they're going to look at providing that value at a totally different point of view. Mandy,
Sarah, you want to go?
I didn't prep my family very well. I was interrupted and missed out.
Which is fine. Which is fine, Sarah. Just go for it.
So what's the question?
So what Josh is saying is, how would you provide value through your function to, right now, me, Nick, Ricky, and Jesse were all arguing marketing and sales, the semantics. How do you feel, something else drives value to your function, say project management?
Yeah, so I think I think it's important to have those relationships established well up front so that you can have a good conversation. So, as a project manager, my role is to make sure that the products that we're building are going to meet the requirements. They're going to satisfy the customer. And so I don't know much about marketing or sales. I've never worked in either of those realms, and so to differentiate what role does what, it doesn't necessarily mean anything to me. But having a good relationship with a customer is absolutely necessary. And so if any of that doesn't go well, then it's hard to figure out what they want and be able to build it.
Mandy?
Well, I'm a customer service supervisor, so I see it more from the customer support side of sales, but we are still part of the sales cycle. We're part of the relationship building and the nurturing, and if you're pissed off, then we get to help you. So that's kind of my side of the customer sales world. I think that on the customer service side, we provide a lot of value by just listening and helping. So normally where sales is often an outbound type of activity, customer service is usually an inbound activity. So if somebody comes to us and they want to place an order and we help them with their immediate need, but then we might see an upsell opportunity or a cross-sell opportunity. Those are things that people are probably more normal, they're more familiar with customer service doing. But I would challenge customer service to up their game, because where I really think that we can help our sales teams and our companies and our customers is by listening. Because for example, in a customer service role, we take orders, right? So let's say somebody calls me and they're like, hey, Mandy, I want to order some chemicals. Great. I'd love to sell you some chemicals. Okay, let me take your order. And then they're like, I need a new address that I've never used before. If I'm being a passive customer service rep, I'm just going to take the address, update the account, and I'm done. If I'm being a proactive customer service person that is part of the sales cycle, I'm going to ask questions. Oh, did you get a new customer? Are we drop shipping to somebody new for you? Or, oh, did you expand? Is this a new warehouse of yours? And talk with the customer, learn about the customer, what's happening with the customer. And then when I get off the phone, I'm immediately emailing my salesperson hey, this is what's up. They just got a new warehouse, go get that business. Because really it should be a conversation, right? And that's where the customer support full cycle really comes into play, I think.
That's a great point, actually.
Yeah, that was really good.
Yep. And it's not, so let me give an actual example. And by the way, Sarah, I was smiling every time you said project manager, because there's a real project manager at the house there. So it's just an inside joke that me and Josh have all the time, right? It's the real project manager.
As opposed to a fake project manager?
No, as opposed to a title that says project manager and teaching in the classroom. But anyway, Josh isn't smiling. He's really annoyed today. So I always tell Josh to smile in his interviews.
No.
So here's the example. We had a project going on, unnamed company, large enterprise, and all that. So this is all about driving value and how you make the customer happy, right? Through a project. So all the specifications are done. You interact. You say you're going to deliver X, Y things to the customer. During the course of the project, what happens is budgets extend as well as timelines, and it's in your role to control those timelines and prevent those overruns. So it's going to be a post for later, but it's still very relevant. So now, how do you give value to the customer at the same time not piss them off, right? So you talk to them, decide on, hey, we can't do this much because it's gone over the specifications we had as part of, it costs money and this and that. Try and convince them, but they're still a customer. If they insist, then find a common ground where they agree and you agree, and ensure that you still give extra because they are ultimately paying you and you want them to end up happy. And to Mandy's point there, that if they're happy, they'll upsell down the line, which is what happened with my project, right? I made them happy. Instead of 2 items, we gave them 3 items, whatever it was, right? Analytics and stuff. And they were so pleased with the result that they went on and referred us as well. So one thing always leads to another. It can be any department. It could be your customer success team. It could be your sales team. It could be marketing. But when you actually and genuinely drive value to whoever you are doing business with, it means better revenue and better value for the customer, and good things for the company, great reviews as well. In a nutshell.
Could I ask a question? Maybe the question is directed to Jesse, but I guess for anyone. So normally the way I might look at a problem is marketing lets people know about a solution, and it's sales' job to let potential customers know what the solution could do for you. Like I always just add the for you, and that's kind of where I see the sales role is about taking the big picture and trying to fit it into the customer's unique shape problem. How does marketing, which is a one-to-many function, how do you find marketing actually adds value to a customer? Like where they've actually now better off because of the interaction, regardless of this moving through to sales or to customer success, and delivery with project management or whatever else. Like just very specifically in marketing, how would you define adding value?
Adding value to the customer, that's great. So one thing we can do is support sales. So, sales is out there talking to customers one-on-one, and Ricky, maybe you're out talking to, who knows, a hospital, and it's a specific hospital and it's in a specific area, and you don't have anything to really show how we helped another hospital just like them. Okay, well, I could probably help you with that. Let's get a landing page. Let's get something together to help you address this one specific customer. So to me, I think that's how marketing gets involved to help a specific customer as we support sales.
I would add that I typically see like a CMO or a head of marketing doing things like the customer journey mapping, right? Figuring out who are the different personas within your ideal client profile, and then creating a map for each of those personas and trying to figure out, what's going to be the emotional peaks and valleys throughout that journey? What are the different stages of that journey? What are going to be the points of friction in that journey? What are going to be the high points in that journey? And using the insights from that to figure out what assets can we put together that would be helpful, right? If we can predict that after this stage, they're going to be really excited, and then reality is going to kick in and they're going to move down the emotional slope a little bit, marketing can put together something to say, hey, just to let you know, typically what we find is that people are really excited at this point and then reality kicks in. So here's what that looks like. Don't get scared. It's going to come back. You're going to have a great experience, but there's going to be a little rough patch, right?
Absolutely.
And if you were...
What was that?
I was just going to say, if you were to define that from the customer's perspective, would you say that's, adding confidence or taking away frictions?
If done well, maybe, but I think it all just comes down to education. So marketing. We're creating new materials. We're looking at all this data and the customer journey map. But the whole point of it is to educate you, to help you understand, how we're going to help you, not what we have, but why you need it.
So, just a question for Sarah, because the product or the idea has to even be created for, we have to recognize that there's a value for something to be created. So, Sarah, out of curiosity, how do you come about creating a product, starting that, so that you can bring a value solution to a problem? How do you figure out where that solution needs to start?
I usually start with a really robust understanding of what the problem is that we're trying to go solve. I have a Lean Six Sigma background, so I use a number of tools from that toolkit to really understand, what's in scope for the problem, what's the pain that's caused from the problem, and really, I try to just spend a lot of my time really in the shoes of those people, understanding what those challenges are, and then creating a solution to solve it becomes a lot easier.
Sounds like empathy.
That made me smile though, Sarah, all the time. So, Josh, you get requirement documents, you have the SOWs, you have got back and forth with the client, defining those specifications, and all of those get documented. And to Sarah's point, that's just the base. I mean, you'll still start, detailed documentation about what each step of that project process is going to do in the development phase. And I'm only speaking from the perspective of startups, SaaS, and development.
Yeah. So, Mandy, for you, usually if you have a client or a customer that's upset, are you getting those because at some point the product, whether it's through marketing or sales, the value has been misrepresented for what it offers? Or why would we have those clients and customers upset?
I think you can have conversations about misrepresentation. Luckily, in my particular job with my particular company, that's not usually what's happening. Sometimes we do have a material that fails, like we sell chemicals. So sometimes there's something like a customer will get it and it's like, something didn't work out right, which can happen. And then you have to kind of walk them through really just your warranty. Like, how do you support them? So like we guarantee our chemicals. If we give you something and let's say it got contaminated and we're like, okay, this has black specks in it. Okay, that can happen. So how do we help? Like let's say we tested the material before it left, but then like it gets rust or something from the bottle in it and it contaminates it during transit, which can happen. So it's really, how do you best support them? Like, do they need to complain first before you can get to solutions? That's okay. It's totally okay if they want to complain because they got something they didn't expect. Is it more that I need to respond to speed? How quickly can I get you a replacement? Yes, we'll absolutely take care of the value for you. Or is it a money thing? Like, I paid all this money for this, certain purity, and then I got it and it was trash. Like, I can't even use it. So trying to figure out what's the customer upset about and how do you best deal with their issue? Like, is it time? Is it money? Is it confidence? Is it just being heard? And then supporting them through that journey until you solve their problem.
That's a great point, Mandy. Josh just got pulled off by that Facebook guy he was arguing with. So, Ricky, can we see your lovely mug today? If it's light out there now.
The sun has just come up.
Good to see you.
Nice.
Happy Sunday
Yeah, sassy Sundays.
in Australia.
In Australia, of course. Mandy,
go on, Ricky.
Mandy, I was just going to say, like, your experience with chemicals sounds it sounds interesting, right? Because I feel the customer probably gets the value out of your product as soon as it's delivered. Well, not as soon as it's, as soon as they use it, but like the chemical's the chemical, and if it's not contaminated, they get 100% of the value. A lot of SaaS challenges is the product will help you achieve X, but to achieve X is complicated, and you need marketing to help them understand like how other people are using it, sales to drive through that value and convince them that they could also achieve X, and then customer support to help them on board and implement it in a way that they might get closer to achieving X. And I feel like that's where so many companies fall down. Marketing does fantastic at the beginning, sales pushes it through, but now you come into this customer success and project management cycle where a year after buying the product, the company's developed 20, 30, 40 more features that can help you achieve so much more. And that cycle is spinning through project managers and through development. And the customer now is no longer achieving this value that they could be achieving because marketing isn't necessarily in the loop anymore and sales has buggered off.
Right. And that I actually understand very well, not from my job, but actually from being a customer. So currently where I work, we've gone through 2 different implementations with new virtual contact software. So very much the software as a service, like taking in what they're doing. And so having been part of that project from the vendor verification stage and choosing your vendor all the way to helping my team implement and use the software, I am very familiar with what you're saying from the customer side of dealing with, oh, it was all bright and shiny and now things don't quite work and now we need communication. And from being on the customer side of it, I really think with the project managers and with the people that are doing the build, it's really just all about communication. Because I think anytime you're doing a build and it's not like a straight out of the box situation, you're going to hit your head sometimes. And that's pretty normal. It's normal for the businesses and it's normal for the customers. So I think what really pisses a customer off is when you don't communicate. Like if marketing and sales were like, hey, when you get this shiny new thing, your call center is going to have metrics. It's going to have reports. It's going to do this. And then you start using it and you're like, crap, I can't even access my reports. Like if I make a complaint and my project manager or my build helper works with me and says, hey, Mandy, you're absolutely right. That's a problem. Let us fix it. This is our timeline. Or, oh, other customers reported this too. This is what we're doing to fix it. It's going to take this amount of time. Okay, great. So now I have a timeline and I know that you're with me. If you ignore me, if you are not proactive, if you do not answer my questions, you're toast. Like you have really burnt that relationship of trust bridge.
And that's such a great point, Mandy. I posted about this 3 days ago, I believe. So this is about that feedback that you get from the customer, right? And for like customer success and project management, you do need to have that communication balance, right? So for example, if it's a critical bug in software, you immediately try to fix it and communicate to the customer that, hey, this is fixed. You can go ahead and start using your software now, whatever feedback. If it's some feedback that they said that they wanted implemented, it's the cost to benefit ratio. And if it's implementable down the line in the roadmap, you tell them, hey, it's going to take 1 month, 2 months, whatever time it is. And if the feature is ever implemented, you let them know, right? That's the main part of communication. Sarah,
Absolutely.
Well, it's interesting to think about, my roles for the last 11 years have been managing IT projects and building apps and analytics for a company to drive productivity. And one of the things we always struggled with was communication of new features, making sure that people are aware of it. And then you put that in the context of a business where you have external customers and you're trying to drive revenue. I mean, that's overwhelming to think about, having to stay connected with the marketing, the sales channels as you're developing all of that. I'd be curious to have some lessons learned from you guys on that.
Could I add to you there, Sarah, that I think this project is becoming the problem is becoming more epidemic in that the sales model at the moment for SaaS is this product-led growth and this land and expand. So you come in with this minimum viable product, which somebody got for free, or they're using 1 license. And now the goal is to expand that into 1,000 licenses and increase functionality. So you get this massive upsell, cross-sell, and expansion in this account. And so 80% of this revenue is now coming in the project management, development, customer success management, marketing, communication. It's all an absolute blur. And I think, like part of the reason for this call is with these silos of the sales, marketing, project management, customer support, I think a lot of companies are failing there.
Yeah. So, did you know that Sarah is recovering from her expedition to see Alice Cooper last night?
How was it?
It was good. It was great, actually. They had a new guitarist. She was a female, and she had only been in the tour for like 4 weeks, and she was phenomenal.
Yes.
It was really entertaining, and he was great. It was spot on.
That's
Definitely got home later than normal.
It always makes me feel bad when I start complaining that, like, I'm in my 40s and here's Alice Cooper in his, I don't know, 70s, 80s, like running across the stage, like, like there's no problem. I'm like, God, jeez. So Grace says the customer needs to have support on how to use the product. Whose responsibility does that fall under?
Customer success.
I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
But
It's customer success.
wouldn't it at some point also fall on, like, if we have the AE that's doing the demo on how, no?
AEs just do the demo for the sales. It's just because of the sales model, right? It doesn't happen in PLG. So typically what you would do is you'd have documentation on how to use the product. But if the customer still faces issues, CS would hop on and, there are initial onboarding calls which CS does. And they, either through recorded video and guidance, step-by-steps of the product, you need to explain to them what the product is like and how it functions. Again, that's part of the overall strategy.
Marketing does need to be involved, though, and it goes back to, talking to a larger audience as opposed to one person. Yes, CS is going to help there, but what marketing can do is make videos of a demo that could help thousands of people as opposed to just one person. We can create articles, step-by-step directions, and so that's why I say marketing first.
Jesse, where does sales enablement fit in? A lot of companies have specific sales enablement people trying to make that marketing collateral, which is designed specifically for the sales cycle as opposed to the one-to-many.
That's a good question, Ricky. So how do they fit in? I don't know. I feel like the way people do it now, at least I've only seen a couple companies, is it's kind of messy, it seems like, I kind of never really understand what those people's roles really are, like where do they fit in?
So another one of those into the void because they had to plug it in. They had to plug it in a silo of, is this sales or is this marketing? So they've got a marketing functioning in the sales team called sales enablement.
Right.
But really, it's just a marketing function.
It's like so many different things. And I typically work at small companies, with like 10 employees. So we don't really have a specific sales enablement person, right? So like at the bigger companies, I guess, maybe it makes more sense.
Well, and Mandy had a kind of an interesting point here about, this is kind of where RevOps comes in, because we tend to see a lot of where we have the siloed areas. Marketing is kind of doing their thing. Sales is doing their thing. Customer success is doing their thing. You got product and project that are doing their own thing. And so we kind of have on this disjointed effort going on. And so it'd be interesting to have, somebody in RevOps, kind of their take on it, on how they can kind of solidify the silos into kind of and the stream just better because we have a dog.
You're like an old dog.
And instantly, whatever Ricky says now has more value because he has a dog.
That's exactly right.
True.
People connect with people, not brands. So there's a lot of truth to that, Josh. People are now going to trust Ricky because he has a dog. He just
I don't just have a dog. I have Earl Pearl, who has his own very particular brand.
And he has an Australian accent, so he's exotic.
Australian / South African.
I have a South African accent in Australia, which doesn't go down so well either.
Hey, who's going to notice the difference?
Right. Yeah. It is.
I've got a question.
All the Australians sound the same. I don't know.
What's up, Nate?
We're talking about the different silos, and there's sales and marketing and many other sub branches therein. I'm curious, is it best practice to have SDRs, BDRs report up through sales, report up through marketing? Because I've seen it both ways. Okay.
Marketing, absolutely, because your SDR, in my opinion, they're not pitch slapping. They're not calling and pitch slapping. What a good SDR does is they are like a calling advertisement. They're calling and educating people. So then that way, when those people are ready to buy, they know who you are and they've built a relationship with you. And not only have you not pitch slapped them and you've called them and you've built a relationship with them, you followed them on LinkedIn, you rang their bell, you've been engaging with their comments this entire time. So to me, that's more of a marketing function.
So why do you think it mostly fits under sales in most organizations?
I think that was the model, that's been the model for 100 years, or longer than that. So, change is hard. You see a lot of the fastest growing companies are doing it this way. So more and more people are slowly making their way. But, the economy's changed. Like pandemic has changed the world. And so, people are online, they're searching for you, they're looking at reviews. So, a traditional SDR calling and trying to study who you are and what you do and then figuring out a way to make a pitch to you, it's not going to work as well as it used to.
But that's still the model, right? It's only 0.1% of people who probably thinking of new ways to implement sales and marketing and remove the silos. It's just the people that we see on LinkedIn or in the dark social groups. But most of the organizations haven't gotten to that point yet where they're ready to embrace new technology and new thought processes for all of these things.
What do you think will help them change, Amir?
All of us shouting together.
What was that?
All of us shouting together.
All of us shouting together. Yes, exactly.
Marcus Kauke yelling at them, advocate for the customer. And Ricky probably telling his dog to bite someone or something.
Well, Ricky, you do outsource sales. So what do you think the solution is?
Honestly, I think I fall more into the marketing, the solution to break down these silos. I think people are very much lost in semantics, and I cut it all down to just revenue generation. And I like the model of having a chief revenue officer, because then they should have the revenue department beneath them. And, how do we as a company generate revenue? All right, you got to do A, you got to do B, and I don't know how it's come to that. Maybe because of so many different skill sets. So you used to have a design or a copywriting or something skill sets, and then because of that, they put you under a manager who could mentor you and grow you up through that way. I don't know how it became siloed, but these days with this blend of full-time staff, contractors, part-time staff, outsourced companies, specialists that you bring in on a project basis, I just don't see the need for these silos. I like revenue departments.
The thing that makes me a little nervous about that as a marketer, because I'm like, revenue should be the number one goal. But unless people fully understand it, which we know they don't, and change is hard, there is a part of marketing that is just about branding and building trust. And those leads you first bring in are not going to be as big of deals as those leads or those customers who've been here forever, who you can go upsell. They're always going to be, more lucrative for a salesperson to call. But that doesn't mean that we should forget about building the brand, building trust, and bringing in those new, smaller customers.
I don't think we forget about those, though, Jesse.
I don't think you would either, but there are people out there that if we're talking about
and I was just coming to that, right? Is RevOps? So many marketers, right, would not want to be held accountable for revenue generation, is what I feel from seeing a lot of posts as well, like sales is.
Right. again, old school thinking, it's part of like change is hard. I know what you're talking about. I know marketers too that like hate me for what I say.
Hey,
think you
sales
run
and
the risk,
marketing. Hey,
too.
you won the
No,
lottery.
no
Yeah,
one
a
can
lot
hate
of
Both
you.
sales and marketing, both sales and marketing hate Jesse now.
No, Jesse, nobody hates you. It's time to
No, but
stop
really, there are those
saying,
marketers
feel
who really
sorry
just,
for you.
they want to just, produce content and not have to work, like they're very siloed. They don't want to have to think about revenue, which is fine as long as there's a leader somewhere thinking about
Yeah.
it. So it does trigger some marketers when
Yeah.
you are
And,
Or-
and don't get me wrong, in a revenue department, I'd still imagine you'd have these specialized functions. You'd still have people who are solely focused on branding and that don't necessarily have a revenue target, but they've been told by their revenue team, hey, like we need people to know more, and they've got their objective is around branding, and that's fine. But there will be times where, all right, maybe branding isn't as important this month or this quarter or this year as sales enablement or as upselling all of our existing customers and helping to communicate the value, because only 30% of our customers are using 80% of our features. And being able to use people as and where needed in a more agile way. So I think it's more about the leadership and the management than the individual and their function.
That's what I was.
So here's one thing. It also speaks to the size of the organization. Many of the larger organizations, especially in the marketing function, will have a niche for a copywriter or a designer or a video editor, and it doesn't matter, right? They won't be really responsible for that revenue. It will be the CMOs and the direct departments. The leadership will be doing the revenue generation or whatever, hitting the goals. But the low end, the person who's just designing stuff might not want to be involved in those. Not true for smaller organizations, but definitely, I see that for larger orgs.
Hey, Sarah and Amir, when you guys are coming through the process of building out a project, is there ever where you get to a point where you realize the direction you're heading or some of the steps, the process you built maybe are not leading to where it needs to be and you kind of have to start all over again?
Not really if you're doing agile, but if you've got a waterfall process, it happens that you might need to go back to the drawing board because some things are totally messed up. But that doesn't happen too often. Again, my perspective is a small SaaS perspective, and enterprise is different. Sarah, could you share perspectives about that?
I mean, I've definitely had experiences where we didn't get it right and had to throw away something. So, for example, we were working on an internal web application, and we were part of GE, and GE was trying to create their own product that would be for people to build SaaS solutions on. And that specific project, the problem statement didn't change, but we went through several iterations and rewrites and everything else with some bad architecture decisions that were made in the beginning. And so even though we were agile, right, we had a pace of having to continually add new features and change. It just, the initial architecture decisions in the beginning really resulted in a complete scrap and rewrite.
Yeah. So,
Sarah, could I ask just on that? I've been told that the main reason startups fail is because they're not solving a genuine problem. So that it's actually the problem statement, at the beginning of an agile function, but that's almost like that has the waterfall effect.
Mm-hmm.
How would you think from a project management perspective, marketers and salespeople can get that right?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that's a really good question. Learning how to get to the root of a problem. I had a number of trainings in my career on learning how to map out a process and dissect the process and identify what's not working, where are the rework loops, where are there stalls in the process, and then how do you identify the solution around that in a way that it becomes like it's clear. When you do really good process mapping in the beginning, and you identify where all the wastes are within the process. And
Yeah. Now,
you can numerically.
When I extrapolate that, a lot of these companies are receiving Series A funding. They're getting millions of dollars before what they would classically call product market fit. So they're already into these silos of sales and marketing, and I don't see how we'd possibly achieve what you've just spoken about. When
that's so funny, Ricky, because I always say you need to define the processes you're building the tools on. You need to define how the tool is going to work before you're actually going to do anything with sales and marketing. If the tool doesn't have those processes defined, it's just not really solving something.
Yeah. I'm still stuck on Ricky saying extrapolate, but so do we? I think the top of like dark social comes out and listening to your buyers and kind of listening to the reviews, and so when it comes to social listening, and I think this can apply to every department, within the revenue system. What does social listening? What impact does that have in bringing value to our customers? Let's start with Nick.
Well, I'm hoping to learn more from Jesse, from Ricky, from all the other people in this room, because I feel like one of the biggest things that people complain about is people who just reach out without having done any research, or even people say personalization, but personalization is now so overused and used in the wrong context. It's like, hey, I noticed you went to this college. Do you want my shit? Like, that has zero relevance, right? Like, why are you bringing this up?
Nick,
right?
I'm totally stealing that for a post now.
But so I feel like social listening, it's really important. It's really hard to do well, but it does add a ton of value. And to me, it's like, how do you find the different triggers? How do you find out where someone is in their journey, right? Are they at a place of awareness? Are they at a place of active consideration? Like, where are they? And then tailoring your message to that, I think, is really important, but it's also hard to do. And, what are different tools? What are different tactics you can use to get better at that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll say at my first startup that I worked at back in 2015, I had like all the social listening tools and I was like on it. I think it was HubSpot. I don't know, one of the ones where you can like plug in a word, and anytime someone says that word, you're going to get a notice, or like some like person or company, anytime that company's notice, like you're going to get a notice. And I probably should get back to it with the social listening part of it, but because it is helpful. And you can tell like who does it the best is the Lavender guys. The Lavender, if you've heard of Lavender, like anytime you say like email and a comment, they show up, they're like, hey, it's like, so they kind of showed me how to do it well, because I used to have it and I was like, that's kind of awkward, so I feel like in terms of social listening, but in terms of like social media analytics, I'm a big fan of HubSpot and having all my tools integrated with HubSpot so I can see, who's following me, what the activity's like, what the views are like, and then who from those views, became a customer potentially. You can sometimes get that data, but usually not, because that's all dark, which is really important, because then if you do want to like use these tools and then justify your spend, you're going to want to put, how did you hear about us on your web form? Because those customers are going to come in either direct or organic, while you actually worked them on social media. So when they tell you how they heard about you, it'll be through social media. That's all I have on social. I feel like Ricky is a good one to ask. He uses the listening tools.
He was laughing earlier. Wasn't sure if it was the dogs or something else.
Yeah, my dog has a very particular kind of preference, and he was busy humping this. Whatever. We don't need to get into it, but it was a funny scene. I got to enjoy it, but I saved all of you from viewing it.
Speaking of abstinence.
That wasn't too LinkedIn friendly, but hey.
Yeah, but no, social listening is definitely not my strength. Like that's
I'm with you. Use social listening tools.
No, I understand them, and I also understand like the need to listen to the sentiment in general. You know, I think that's also where a lot of people miss. Like they'll look out for the word email, but they might miss. If you wanted another view, it's there it is. Whilst I talk about social listening, you can listen to two dogs either playing or foreplay. I don't know. It's a bit. So
They make a cute couple.
yeah, they definitely would. No, social listening, not something that anyone on LinkedIn should listen to me talk about.
Next going, I think the dogs were too much for him.
You scared him away, Ricky.
I'll tell you what, like I have this big dog at my house, and when people come and they're like, you know, well, we don't like dogs, I'm like, well, that's great that we know that, because then you also know not to come to my house. Right? Like, it is a great way, and we're talking about marketing and trying to project what you are and true value. Well, here's the dog, and if you're on the cat side, that's fine. There's a lot of houses that have cats in them, and you can go to those.
Hey, I like cats too.
I do like cats too. My wife's allergic, but we do like cats. You know, our two children, we said, like, you know, when they grow up, we don't mind if they gay, straight, bi, where they are and they're on the gender spectrum, as long as they dog people. And they both hate dogs. They both cat people. So anyway, I know very.
And your dog is huge, so that dog probably terrifies them.
No, he's like an absolute gentle giant. Like he just like anyway. So
I
off
had a
topic.
big dog as a kid, and I used to get scared of it, even though it was nice. But then I became a dog person. So all I'm saying, Ricky, is there's hope.
All right, great. Well, we've kind of just learned. All right, we'll just try and make them the best version of themselves, but they can be whatever they want. But it has taught me a lot about sales and marketing. And you certainly can't convince. If I can't convince my kids to like dogs, I can't convince anyone of anything.
That's not true.
You just haven't brought enough value to uncover their pain points yet, Ricky, when it comes to a dog.
Well, kids are just really hard to convince of anything. So I wouldn't take away from like your sales credibility there, Ricky, based on your kids.
You know, maybe
Yeah.
that's so. Somebody posted that there's this project where they got together this group of kindergartners, and so if you need like moral support or like positive encouragement, you can call this number, and you know, kids can always be very uplifting because they can be like, no, you want to fly and turn invisible, you can do anything you want to. No, you can do that. But kids are also incredibly honest. So maybe this is where you start trying your marketing and like sales pitches to kids, and they'll let you know if it sucks in a heartbeat.
All right, so we can't use kids in physical labor, but we can use them in marketing and sales, right? I just want to know like where this line is.
Yes, especially if it's about fruit snacks and juice boxes. They'll help you out.
Yeah, you don't even have to pay them. Just give them food and drink.
Are you kidding? I got my son to do some photography at someone's wedding, and he's asking for a salary already. So.
Did you tell him you're lucky I feed you? I brought you into this world. Is that
On occasion.
Valid, but not a good sales technique.
no?
They think that that's the baseline of your relationship, is that you provide for them. They're not convinced. That's not gonna sway them.
No.
Is that it? That was like the longest awkward silence on LinkedIn Live ever, right? I was going to say, like, do we have nothing left to talk about?
Well, in fairness, we went from dogs to kids, and what do you follow that up with? Back to social listening?
Yeah, that's entirely my fault. Never have me on a podcast or a LinkedIn Live, right? Well, you can, just as long as there's nothing in particular you want to talk about.
Well,
I
Ricky,
need to know what you've got going on and that you're able to walk and be on video.
It's what I explained to all of my friends. Sorry, what I explained to all my friends yesterday was that it's either this or looking after the kids in the morning. So this walk is called a mini holiday.
Nice.
He's got a selfie stick, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it is. And I get like people think I'm filming them because they don't know which way this is pointing. And people are like really offended. They're like, why are you filming me?
It's great. Well, I'm appreciating all the scenery.
Yeah, I can take in a nice little Melbourne's. So if you want some scenery, there's some. I don't know if you can see it. This is what I was talking about earlier.
There's some proof of. So, are you getting paid for photography?
No, you can use all of this royalty free.
It's not
Well, and
royalty.
last week we got like the police sirens. Ricky was running from the cops because somebody called in a complaint that he was filming them. Something about some great looking leggings doing yoga in the park. I don't know. You'll have to tell that story, Ricky.
Well, I'm definitely not going to let the truth get in the way of a good story here. So it all started one day.
All right.
So the conversations do continue, but much of it is not LinkedIn rated, and that goes on after this, live stream.
Is it rated NL, not for LinkedIn?
And not for LinkedIn, for sure.
Well, Jesse, why don't you tell us what you learned today?
What did I learn today? Oh man, that's a hard one because we got into some project management stuff, and that's not really my forte. I really liked listening to Sarah talking about her processes and identifying the problem first and like really dissecting it. And also, if you know the vulnerabilities or the waste, like where the waste is in your process beforehand, it kind of helps you down the road. So I learned from Sarah and also from Mandy. You were talking about, the chemicals and like how things like that happen. Like with the rust getting into the chemical and, those, I don't think about that stuff working in software. I do because I'm a consumer and I get things, but like, I don't have to think about it on like the B2B, side of like, oh, I just sent a business something and it's contaminated. Like, what do I do? So, those were all really great. That was all really great information. So I learned the most from Sarah and Mandy.
And 2 new perspectives as well from Sarah. Thank you. I mean, about, how to go about the process within the projects. And, we have a conversation coming up, Sarah, because I would love to share how, doing all that stuff with communicating, like making those documents and sharing those. I think that's integral to part of driving value.
Yeah.
And Mandy, that was really interesting. From a chemical perspective, how the customer deals with, problems and all. So part of customer service is very different again. And, it's always a different perspective.
Yeah. Well, join us next week where we'll get to hear more National Geographic, according to Ricky, on the mating rituals of dogs, maybe even cats. And
well, hey, wait, am I the only one that learned anything? What did y'all learn?
Yeah, Ricky, what did you learn?
For some reason, Josh always tells Jesse,
Yeah.
hey, Jesse, what did you learn?
He has a very particular agenda.
So.
Yeah, he's like, I just put all of this together so that I could help tell my boss, get other people to tell my boss what I want her to hear. Like, this is very, very smart, Josh. Very smart. No, I think what I learned is it was really interesting with Mandy and Sarah talking about customer service and project management. And like, I'm really going to give a lot of thought to like how that fits in the modern day sales cycle. And that, we'll often talk about the silo between marketing and sales, but with 80% of revenue or more coming after sales, it's actually about how do we remove the silo between project management, customer service or customer support or customer success management, sales and marketing. And I think some of the things that they've brought up is just, it isn't part of the conversation enough. And the companies that really want to do well are going to have to consider that more so than do their SDRs fit under sales and marketing, which I think we all agree is probably marketing, but actually the question should be, how are you using your SDRs in upsell and cross-sell through customer success management? Maybe that's the next conversation to have. And how's project management helping to delineate and extrapolate. Was that the word I needed to say, Josh?
Yes,
Target
yes.
word?
I'm glad you did. It's like Beetlejuice if you say it 3 times. Something magical will appear.
Yeah. So I'm definitely leaving, like, giving a lot of thought to that, because I think that is a really underexplored area.
Yeah, that was my epiphany, is the 4 functions kind of coming together, and how do you harmonize across, and that was really great. And then also, Mandy, you mentioned during your cross sell, you're looking at the bigger opportunities. And if you detect something that could lead to something bigger, you make sure you communicate that to your sales channel. I think demonstrates great active listening, and also just always looking at what's the big picture, what's the biggest opportunity. It's great.
And I think for me, what I learned is, yes, I totally agree with all of these things about customer service being added to the sales cycle conversation, because customer success is part of the conversation. Customer service often is not part of the conversation. And I think if we're training our customer service reps better, they can be a better part of that feeding funnel. So I'm down for that conversation at any point in time. But the thing that I learned, I like the conversation about marketing and sales. Like, where does one start and the other stop? Because I think a lot of companies talk about that. And so it was interesting to hear, like, do you think it should be on like SDRs and marketing paired together, or SDRs and AEs paired together? Like, I think that's a really interesting conversation to have, just because I think with marketing, something that did not come up in today's conversation, but that I was thinking about, is with marketing, as we move more and more towards education and engagement, people are social buyers. So like, they go to websites and check your stuff out and scrutinize it before they ever talk to sales. So like, if marketing is doing a great job of education and engagement, that's where I think their metrics should come from. It's not, did they hit a certain sales number? It's how many clicks did you get? Like, did people go through your website? Did they click? Did they engage? Did they like actually want to dig for more information? And then maybe from there, did they ask for a demo? So like, I think that that's kind of a fascinating conversation. So I was intrigued by that part.
I agree.
So we end this week again, and see you all next time.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.
I'll let you outro with a view of the hot air balloons over Melbourne this morning.
Oh, nice. I don't see them now.
Can't see
Oh,
them,
wait.
though.
I just see trees.
I'll try hold still. Can you see?
Not really, but
No.
No.
Okay.
No.
I don't know what I'm doing. No, that's
We
just me.
appreciate the effort,
Wait,
though.
there. Can you get it? Yeah. No.
No.
Okay.
Okay, Ricky, you
Empty
got it.
sky.
Fuck it. All right. Sorry, guys. I tried. I definitely tried. I'll just send you a screenshot. I'll send you a photo later, just like a little personal. Cheers, everyone.